Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel where today we are going to do a full-length, non-spoilery review of Spinning Starlight by R.C. Lewis. So, this is a young adult science fiction retelling of The Wild Swans, and we are following our main character of Liddy Jansen, who is one of 9 children in the Jansen family, and this family happens to be the most powerful tech family in the galaxy. Now, Liddy is going about living her life, and then she realizes she's in this situation where all of her brothers have been kidnapped, and they've been placed in these conduits, which are these structures that are used in faster than light travel to get to the other planets in the galaxies. And Liddy herself has been given this implant on her vocal cords. And if she speaks, that implant triggers a failsafe which will blow up all the conduits and in doing so kill all her brothers. So now Liddy is on this mission to save herself and to save her brothers. So let's just jump right into the world building. So I thought that the world building was generally well done. What we got was well thought out. It fit together pretty well and was just generally interesting. Now we didn't get a ton of world building. Like, this is not a world building heavy kind of story, but we always got enough to the point where I didn't really realize how little we got until we got to the end of the book, and I was like, oh, well, I could have used more. I mean, well, I would have liked more. Not even I could have used more, but I would have liked more because like I said, we always got enough. And generally speaking, I didn't have any major problems with the world building except in one instance. So, Lydia is unable to speak. Otherwise, she triggers this failsafe. And whenever a character is unable to speak but has information they want to impart, I'm always just like, write it down, right? Well, the author thought of that, thank goodness, and their solution was that Liddy's society gave up reading and writing a long time ago. Everything is done visually or done through their voice. It's voice activated, you have media casts, everything. And I don't really buy it. I don't buy that premise. And because for me, it's like, I'm sitting here going, okay, well, what about the people who are deaf and hard of hearing or mute or nonverbal? Like, what about them? And even supposing that, yes, we're in a science fiction story and there probably are a lot of medical interventions that can help anybody who has like a physical issue that causes them to be deaf or hard of hearing or mute or nonverbal. That's not the only reason, especially for people that are nonverbal. So I'm sitting here going, either there's literally nobody in your society that's nonverbal, which I don't like because I feel like that's ignoring an entire section of the population, or there are people that are nonverbal or deaf or hard of hearing, and they have technologies to interact with society, and Liddy just didn't use them. And so I had problems with that premise. Now, everything that is built upon that premise, whether it's world building or the plot, makes so much sense. It is so logical, and I actually really like it. I just have the problem with the premise itself, and it did really bother me. But apart from, I do appreciate that the author addressed it, and again, I really appreciated that everything logically followed from it. I just wish we had a different explanation. So next, let's move into the characters. So I thought that Liddy herself was a good, solid character who had kind of a mild personality, which is unusual. Usually you have a very strong personality for the main character, but that's really not what I got. And it was actually okay. I really appreciated her realism. So like, and just how realistically she was portrayed. So okay, she's under immense pressure. And so occasionally she would break down or have like very unhappy thoughts because she's just under so much pressure. But after a reasonable amount of time, she would pull it together and figure stuff out. And I really just liked that. I mean, I frequently think that when characters break down, they break down for so long. And I'm just like, come on, just pull it together. And I really liked that Liddy was able to do that. Now, every other character was underdeveloped. And sometimes it was okay. Like there were occasional characters that were like walking, talking tropes, and it didn't matter because they were just there to move the plot along anyway. And they did that reasonably well. There were times, however, that I do think it was unfortunate. For example, the antagonist. Honestly, we needed an antagonist to be the person who put the brothers into the conduits and who put in the implant, but like we got nothing else about them, and that was I do think that that was rather unfortunate. um like, and then also our main our love interest was even more mild than Lydia herself. He is like, I mean, he's kind of just a trophy significant other in that he's smart, he's good looking, he's good with people, and he just loves and supports Liddy through what she's doing. And like that's all he is. And so there's like almost no chemistry, and it was the only saving grace was I could see why they would be friends. Um and the romance part of it was a plotline that was so secondary that it didn't matter that there was no chemistry, because I did believe that they would be friends and that they would help each other out. So it worked out okay, but it was just like the blandest romance ever. It's okay. But I do think that the one that was absolutely to the detriment, or like that did have an impact on some of the stuff, is that the brothers were really underdeveloped as well. Now, to be fair, there's 8 of them. And we don't get to see Liddy interact with them very much because they're in the conduits. Um, and so they're just not developed. And the relationship between them and Liddy is not developed either. And to me, it was a little bit jarring to read it because, like, Liddy has the same relationship with every single one of her brothers, or at least that's what it appears to be, because that's how underdeveloped they are. And as somebody who grew up with not with 8 brothers, but with 3 brothers, and I have a different relationship with every single one of them, like that was a little jarring to me personally to read. Um, but how it impacted the story was that there were points along the story where there was supposed to be this emotional impact. And there was, because it was Liddy and it was her brother and they have a good relationship. But it wasn't as much of an impact as it could have been if it had been a special brother with a special relationship, if that makes sense. You could have substituted any of the brothers in and it wouldn't have mattered. It would have had the same emotional impact. And I do think that that is like, it just blunted the emotional impact of it. So next, let's talk about the plot. So I will say that I do not know how good of a retelling this particular book is because I don't really know the story of the Wild Swans. As I was reading it, I did recognize a few things, but I am not comfortable enough with the original story to say whether this is a good retelling or not. But the plot I thought was good. It wasn't super original, and I definitely knew kind of where we were going, but the journey and how we got there definitely surprised me along the way. But I still appreciated it because to me it logically made sense, and I thought it was very, very interesting. And I also really appreciated that we did take time to deal with some of the emotions that Liddy was feeling, but it stayed really well balanced between the adventure part of her mission and the more emotional angle. And so I really appreciated that. Next, let's talk about the pacing and the writing style. So this is a very fast-paced, engrossing kind of book. This is the kind of thing where I would put the book down and then immediately think about when I could pick it back up again and finish reading it. And I also just generally liked the structure of it. So we would have a chapter, and then at the end of each chapter, we would have a like 1 to 2 page scene that was a flashback to Liddy's childhood. And this is actually how we developed out some of the relationships with her brothers and like how they interact as a family was through these flashbacks. And I generally thought that they were well done and they added. So each flashback either contextualized the previous chapter or it foreshadowed a little bit for the next chapter. Now, occasionally it was a little heavy-handed, but generally I think it was still well done, enough that I think it added something to this story. And one of the things that I really just think was probably the best thing that was done about this book is that it's just generally a very well balanced book. There was adventure and emotion, there was world building, and there was, I mean, not a ton of character development, but character interactions, and it was just generally, I thought, really well balanced and just well done. And I really enjoyed reading this book. And overall, I ended up giving this 4.25 stars. So that's it. So comment down below if any of you have even heard of this book, let alone read it, because I feel like nobody has. But that is all I have for this review. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And until next time, have happy reading, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.